Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Influence Economy podcast. I'm your host, Shayna Davis. I'm so glad that you're here today. But before we get started, I have a favor to ask you. So, wherever it is that you are listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. And with that screenshot, I want you to post it on LinkedIn, tag me here at Shayna Rattler Davis. And then I just want to hear your aha moment or biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is because, in my opinion, far too many leaders don't know how to cultivate and build the external influence that the new world demands. And sharing these episodes will expose people to the signals that they need to develop to lead better. So I appreciate you for being willing to do so. Let's go ahead and get into today's episode. So, let me start with something that might feel uncomfortable, but if you're listening to this show, I know you can handle it. Most leaders want more influence, more credibility, more visibility, more trust, more opportunity. They want to be heard in bigger rooms, taken seriously by people who don't report to them, and seen as someone who actually moves things forward. And yet, the reason that most leaders struggle with external influence, it has nothing to do with content, confidence, or communication skills. It has everything to do with identity. Because before you can influence well externally, you have to understand who you are as a leader. Not your title, not your personality, not your LinkedIn headline, your leadership identity. And one of the fastest ways to understand that identity is recognizing what I call your influence archetype. This is where influence stops being generic and it starts becoming strategic. Because here's the mistake that I see all the time: leaders, they're taught how to show up before they actually understand who they are. So then they end up copying other leaders. They adopt styles that don't fit. They chase visibility that actually erodes trust instead of building it. And then they wonder why external influence feels exhausting, awkward, or ineffective. Influence, it only works when it's aligned with identity. And identity always shows up in patterns. And those patterns are what I call influence archetypes. They're not labels, they're not boxes, and they're definitely not personality tests. So don't worry, I'm not about to tell you to go take some quiz. But what they are is signal patterns. They explain how your leadership naturally communicates trust, authority, and credibility, and where that communication breaks down if you're not intentional. There are 5 core archetypes that I created, and I want to walk you through all 5 of those today. And what I want you to do is, as you listen to this, I want you to resist the urge to say, like, oh, I should be more about, but should be more like that one, or oh, I'm this one, or oh, I'm that one. Instead, what I want you to ask yourself is, which one of these sounds like me on my best day and on my messiest one? All right. So let's start with the visionary. The visionary is the innovator, the future architect. This is the leader who sees what's coming before the rest of the organization even realizes that that a shift is happening. They spot opportunity early. They think in possibilities. They're mission driven, big picture, and forward looking. Visionaries are often the ones saying, here's where the market is going. Here's what talent will expect next. Here's the future we should be building towards. Their appetite for visibility is usually high, but selective. They're not interested in being visible for operational updates or status reports. They want to be visible when they're talking about ideas. Here's the challenge: when a visionary isn't grounded in execution signals, they can accidentally communicate instability. Not because they're wrong, but because their ideas move faster than people's confidence and timelines. Boards, investors, and teams, they may believe in the vision, but still quietly wonder, can this actually happen? When? And who's making sure it lands? The trust gap here isn't belief, it's containment. So, the external influence move for visionaries, the action I want you to take if you're a visionary is this: translate vision into outcomes, not possibilities. Don't just talk about what could happen. Anchor your visibility in what will happen, what is happening, and what has already been proven. Vision doesn't build trust on its own, vision with evidence does. Next is the authority. The authority, that's the expert, the credibility holder. This is the leader everyone trusts internally as a source of truth. They're deeply knowledgeable, their judgment is respected, they're the person others go to when something really matters. But here's the thing, authorities often have the lowest appetite for visibility. They don't self promote, they don't chase attention, they wait to be asked. And while that feels noble, it creates a problem externally because what they signal to the market is competence without leadership presence. Externally, they look capable but passive. Stakeholders, they trust their knowledge, but they don't see them as someone shaping the future. They're explaining the industry instead of directing it. So the trust gap here, it isn't credibility, it's direction. So the external influence move for authorities is this: claim a clear point of view publicly. Not more content, not louder opinions, a point of view, your own point of view, not the company's point of view, not the product or services point of view, but your point of view that says, this is where the industry is headed, and here's why it matters. Here's what I know. Here's what I believe. Here's what I think. Authority becomes influence when expertise turns into leadership. Now let's talk about the power connector. This is the relationship strategist, the leader who knows how to move through systems of power. They build influence through partnership, alliance, and access. They're often incredible at navigating politics, aligning stakeholders, opening doors. Visibility for power connectors tends to be indirect. They're comfortable being visible like with others, like on panels, partnership announcements, group initiatives, but they hesitate to stand alone. And here's the risk with that. When all of your influence appears tied to proximity, the signal becomes borrowed authority. People start to wonder, like, who are you without your network? And does your influence travel with you? The trust gap here is independence. So the external influence move for power connectors is this: establish owned authority signals. That might mean solo thought leadership, independent messaging, clear positioning that doesn't rely on association. Relationships amplify influence, but they can't replace identity. Next, number 4 is the trailblazer, the change driver, the disruptor. This leader pushes organizations forward when comfort becomes a liability. They challenge norms, they call out what's broken, they're often the catalyst behind transformation. Internally, trailblazers are bold, but externally, they tend to be guarded because they know that disruption can scare people, and it often does. The risk signal here is volatility. Even when results are strong, stakeholders can feel uneasy about sustainability and alignment. They worry about chaos instead of cohesion. The trust gap here isn't impact, it's reassurance. So the external influence move for trailblazers is this: frame change as stability, not threat. Your messaging needs discipline. You're not tearing things down, you're building something stronger. That's what you'll need to convey. Disruption becomes trusted when it feels intentional and contained. Finally, there's the stabilizer, the operator, the execution anchor. This is the leader who keeps things running. They deliver consistently, they protect the business, they align teams and make sure promises are kept. And yet, stabilizers often actively avoid visibility. They believe that the work should speak for itself. They deprioritize presence in favor of performance. And the risk signal here is invisibility. Externally, they can appear interchangeable, safe but not strategic. The trust gap isn't reliability, it's readiness. So the external influence move for stabilizers is this: reframe visibility as risk management. Strategic presence isn't ego, it's responsibility. And if no one sees your leadership, the organization becomes vulnerable when you're not in the room. Now, here's what matters the most. Out of all five of these architects, and archetypes, you may have to go back and listen to them again, but no archetype is better than another. Every organization needs all five of the archetypes. The problem isn't which archetype you are. The problem is when leaders are developed without identity, which brings me to the truth that I want to end with today. Identity is the number one question that most humans have. Who am I? What do I stand for? How do I show up? And yet, it's the last thing most companies address when it comes to leadership development. We train skills, we assess performance, we measure outcomes, but we rarely develop leadership identity. And without identity, influence becomes accidental. That's why I often say strong product plus right team equals failure, because we think that the product strength enough is alone. We think that just having the right team that can lead the charge internally and lead well internally is going to equal success. Not in the new world. It requires something different, which is why we here at Executive Signals Group are redefining. We are defining a new era of leadership. So, if this episode sparked something for you, or maybe you just realize that your leaders are signaling the wrong things externally, I want you to reach out. Message me on LinkedIn. Tell me what exactly, like what it is that you're seeing inside of your organizations, because helping companies clarify leadership identity and influence is the work that we do. It's the foundation of all of the training that we do, and it changes everything. So just remember that influence is not about being louder, it's about being aligned. And alignment always starts with identity. So I hope that this episode has been great for you. I ask that you will share it, and that you will go back and listen to previous and future episodes as well. Have a great day. Bye-bye.